All right. Martin Scorsese. So, for anyone that's been living under a rock, Martin Scorsese is probably one of the most prolific, legendary directors currently in Hollywood. Um, he has given us a lot of fantastic film. Taxi Driver, Wolf on Wall Street, The Departed, you name it. This guy's done. If it's a mob movie, this guy's done it. Right. So when it comes to making movies, Martin Scorsese is not somebody that you're just going to ignore. This guy has earned his place on Hollywood Mount Rushmore if that's what you want to do. Okay. Now, in the past, Martin Scorsese he's got a lot of heat. And some of that from me, especially when he came out and started talking out the side of his mouth about comic book movies. He started saying that, like, oh, Marvel movies are kind of like theme parks. They're not really cinema, etc., right? And it really rubbed people, especially in the industry, the wrong way. Now, a lot of people, even Kevin Feige and you had James Gunn, you had all these other people that make comic book movies who look up to him. They look up to him, right? And you had these people that were kind of like tiptoeing a little bit, because what do you do when the person you look up to, that you respect, that you revere, basically craps on the same thing that you're doing that he's doing? It's not a situation you want to be in, right? It's almost like if you were a basketball player and LeBron James said, the way you play basketball is trash. It's like, dang, LeBron, like, I played like this because I looked up to you. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, he got a lot of flack for basically looking down on comic book movies and franchises as if it was a lower form of cinema, right? All right. With that said, I'm going to tell y'all something that might be controversial. I don't really care, but it's my opinion. And this is kind of where it's the foundation of where I'm coming from. I don't have a personal problem with Martin Scorsese. What I have, the basis of part of my angst with what he says, how he says it, and how it's being treated in the public discourse, is because I personally believe a lot of this stuff is rooted in a problematic history of filmmaking. Now, bear with me on this. Martin Scorsese is 70 something plus years old, or I don't know, maybe even 80, which means that he is the byproduct of the film industry when the film industry was dominated by white men. What does that mean? It means that he grew up primarily probably watching older white men making movies through their lens and taking that as his inspiration. Now, let me be very clear. There's nothing wrong with that, right? If that's what he saw and that's what he liked and that's what inspired him, cool, fine. Okay, so I'm very clear with this. I don't have a problem with him liking what he likes. What I have an issue with is the fact that he has taken that very narrow lens of filmmaking and has adopted that as the standard. And keep in mind that women and other people of color were not around to contribute to what we know of filmmaking in those days, and it really is more of a modern thing. It's a modern thing now that we're actually getting new voices and new perspectives to contribute into the art form of filmmaking, and diversifying how we interpret film. He did not come from that. His vision did not come from that. Okay? So again, bear with me. I'm just laying the foundation of where perspectives come from and where definitions and viewpoints come from. Now, because he came from this very limited perspective of filmmaking, and I'm not saying he never saw somebody else of color or whatever. I'm just saying that was the dominant view at the time. He had the opportunities that, again, other women and people of color didn't have to make movies however he wanted. He wanted to make Italian film movies, mob movies. Cool, great, good. He did it. He had that leeway. He had that freedom. He didn't have to face the same level of discrimination that women or people of color had to do if they wanted to make a movie. Fine. Because he had so much leeway compared to his, colleagues and people, he's been able to be ingratiated into Hollywood Hall of Fame of directors, right? Because today, when you ask, I don't know, the purest of film lovers, who are the best directors in there, 9 times out of 10, they're going to name at least 3 to 5 white old directors, right? Spielberg and Scorsese and whatever. They're gonna name the older white ones because that's who defined cinema, and that's part of where I have an issue, because what they believed shaped cinema at that time was not very diversified, and it was a very limited area of art. Now, with that said, because of where they came from in a limited perspective, over time, they have been glorified. Not to say that their work was bad, but they've been glorified by film critics, film lovers, as, the GOATs, right? And here's the thing. Once again, I don't have a problem with the fact that they're going to like what they like. They're going to make the movies that they want to make. Got no problem with that. What I do have a problem with, and again, it's not personal, I have a problem with the reaction from critics or movie purists or whatever that act as though everything they say and do is law. Martin Scorsese can be one of the most prolific directors in the world, but he's not above reproach. And that is the part that I kind of have issue with, where when people even try to push back on what he says, we're not saying he's a terrible director. We're not saying he's crap. We're not even saying he shouldn't be listened to. I'm not even saying we should disrespect the man. I'm just saying what he says is not film law. And that's okay. It doesn't take anything away from what he's accomplished and what he's done to merely say, hey, man, you might be wrong on certain things. Last time I checked, he's still human, right? Last time I checked. So, with that said, this is why I'm as a black film critic, I have issues when somebody coming from the old guard has the audacity to try to gatekeep what is cinema. Because last I checked, cinema is still evolving and it's still changing, because a whole lot of people were not included to help define what cinema was 80 years ago. All right. Now, let's get into what this man has said. He said a lot. It's been a couple of different interviews. It's one big interview, so I'm going to try and get to most of it, and I'm going to break down what I agree with, because I do think he said some things that are true. He did say some things that are true, but he also said some things that are problematic. And I'm going to call these things out, and I'm going to give him praise where it needs to praise, and I'm going to criticize what needs to be criticized. So Martin Scorsese want to fight. He want to fight with y'all. He says, yo, we got to fight back against comic book movie culture by supporting directors like Christopher Nolan. Woo, okay. Now, when asked about those blockbusters, stop, hold up, wait a minute. We're going to address that first and foremost. Let me just say this. Y'all knew, and I'm talking to my fellow colleagues, my fellow press, media folks out there. Stop asking Martin Scorsese about blockbusters. Stop it. You don't need to do this. Why you got to get me all upset and triggered now? You know what type of nonsense happens whenever this man talks. Now, the person that did the original interview, he actually talked about this. So I do want to bring it up because he did mention it in the interview. So let's read it real quick. He said, here I suggested to Scorsese that the movie theaters could show only blockbuster films that Hollywood actually made, and therein might lie the problem. I feel bad about having done this, since Scorsese's skeptical comments about Marvel and comic book films in the past have attracted a lot of vitriol, and here I am inviting more vitriol for Martin Scorsese. Please complain to me and not him. No problem. No problem. What's his name? Give it. What's his name? Zach Barron? You catching these too? Yes. Zach, stop asking him questions about comic book movies. We already know how the man feels. Again, he's entitled to his opinion, but you see his sensationalism and the vitriol, as you mentioned, what it breeds. Don't ask Martin Scorsese no more questions about blockbusters, franchises, IP. No, talk to him about his movie, and that's it. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. But let's get back to Martin, because both of y'all getting that smoke. You shouldn't be asking these questions because you knew it was a trigger. You knew that was triggering, and all the media outlets was finna run over this, and they have, and this is why we're here today. You shouldn't have asked the question. Be better. But let's get into this. What Scorsese actually said. He said here, when it came to comic book movies and franchises, the danger there is what it's doing to our culture, because there are going to be generations now that think movies are only those. That's what movies are. The culture. Think about the culture, man. So the best way I can probably address this, because Martin Scorsese right now he's afraid. He's fearful of, if Hollywood keeps pushing out big blockbuster movies, comic books and franchises, the Harry Potters, if that's all they keep pushing out in the theaters, his fear is that we're going to have generations, the kids, think about the children, the kids, man, they're going to be so caught up with these big old flashy movies that they're going to think that's what movies are. So allow me to give y'all probably the most sophisticated, intellectual response that I can come up with to his concern. So what? So what? If kids grow up thinking that Infinity Endgame is the movie that they want to see, or that they think is a great movie, so what? If kids grow up seeing Barbie and they're like, that's a movie, so what? Who cares? And the reason why I say this is because filmmaking is art. The same way you were inspired when you were a young boy going to the theater, paying 25 cents for some popcorn and a ticket and a bottle of Coke and all this other stuff. Well, they actually laced real Coke in the Coke back then. It was another story. Why can't other people be inspired in a different way? Why can't you allow? This is what I'm talking about with gatekeeping. So what if movies change from what you used to see and what you used to know? Is art supposed to stay confined to one form? Could y'all imagine? Let's say, for my real artists out there, when you look at like the Italian Renaissance, you got the Da Vinci's, you got the Michelangelos, the Donatellos, you got the Raphaels, you got all of the Ninja Turtles out there. Okay. Could y'all imagine if art stayed just like that? And if art never included African art, Latino art, female art? What if art just stayed white and Italian and it stayed back to the Renaissance period only? We'd never be able to get new things. And if that's what movies are starting to become, so be it. It's okay. Because you know what? Cultures are changing every day, B. Every day. Things change. And art is usually a reflection of culture, and sometimes culture reflects art. So this fear that he has is malplaced. It's misplaced. Like, bro, I get it. People aren't making black and white silent movies anymore. Was there an uproar with that? They moved to color. Were y'all shaking y'all fists like, how dare y'all put color in my movies? Let stuff change. He got more. When the interviewer posited that audiences might already believe that these movies are the way movies are, Scorsese said they already think that, which means that we have to then fight back stronger. And it's got to come from the grassroots level. It's got to come from the filmmakers themselves. And you'll have, the Safdie brothers, and you'll have Christopher Nolan, you know what I mean? And hit them from all sides. Hit them from all sides and don't give up. Let's see what you got. Go out there and do it. Go reinvent. Don't complain about it. But it's true, because we've got to save cinema. From what? What are you saving? What are you even talking about? Did anyone tell him that Christopher Nolan also did the Dark Knight trilogy? Who is denying Chris Nolan anything? Didn't this man just get a big old budget just to do a movie about a nerdy scientist that made the A-bomb? Is Chris Nolan struggling in these streets? He just made a movie called Oppenheimer. I ain't never heard of Oppenheimer until the movie came out. Blame the public school system if you like, but I'm sorry. That's just, he got to do a movie that he wanted to make. The studios gave him all the monies. What are you talking about? Matter of fact, after Tenet and after WB went through all their crazy nonsense, the new executives came in and wrote Christopher Nolan an extra check. They sent this man an extra couple $1 million. It was just like, hey, man, thank you. We support you. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You still have studios out there that are putting movies, giving these directors an opportunity. Now, here's the thing. And I think that he's kind of missing some of this. Everything is changing. Everything is changing. When you look at like the movies that get the green light, that make those billions of dollars and stuff, that studio takes that money. And by the way, let's not act like we're getting big old franchises and comic book movies every week. They probably make, I don't know, 20, maybe 30%. Have y'all gone on Fandango or whatever and seen what movies are actually playing? All of them are not franchises. Now, there are a good amount, don't get me wrong, but there are still actual independent movies that still get played. The difference is everyone doesn't want to watch them. And once again, that's okay. Why? There was a movie that just came out, Dumb Money. It was about the GameStop situation. I think Seth Rogen's in it and all this stuff. And it's in theaters, right? Check this out. I actually got hit up by the studio asking me, "Hey, do you want to come and see this movie?" Now, I'm not talking about the screening. They already offered a screening and I just didn't have time to watch it. And honestly, I didn't care to watch it. It's just, I don't want to go to the movies for that. And this Friday, they was like, "Look, the movie's in theaters. Can we give you and a guest a straight up pass to come and see this movie?" What does that tell me? It tells me a couple of things. One, the studios, which I've never seen. I've been doing this for almost 10 something years. I've never seen the studio sit here and say, "Come and see this movie after the fact." Not an advanced screener, but the movie's in theaters. We gonna give you the free ticket. Come, please just come see this movie. Now, you can't sit here and tell me that wasn't part of some franchise. That wasn't part of some, recognizable IP. That wasn't a comic book movie. You can't sit here and act as though studios are not trying to help these movies, because at the end of the day, they do want all their movies to be successful, right? Then you have the other factor of me as a consumer. I'm not paying y'all no $20 for Dumb Money. It sounds like dumb money right there. Have y'all not realized that movie tickets are expensive? Because it's not just me going to the movies and paying $20 for a ticket. It's also me going to the movies and I might have to pay for parking. I might have to burn some gas. Gas ain't cheap. I'm going to do all that for dumb money? A movie that probably would have been far more successful on Netflix or some streaming platform, which, by the way, I still might not watch it. And that's the other. Oh, I'm going to get to that later. But you're not about to sit here and ask folks to take their hard-earned money and their time. Let's not act like your time is just like you ain't got nothing else to do. People have things to do. You got time and you got money that can't just go to just anything. So if and when people make the decision to go see something, it at this point, now it has to be kind of like an event. It has to, yes, I understand the spectacle is there, but you know what? I'll pay money to go see Janet Jackson. I'll pay money to go see Beyonce or, Usher or whatever. I'll pay money for that because that's like an event. That's something special. I'm not paying for dumb money. And I'm sorry to pick on dumb money. It's just what came to mind. But I'm not paying for that right now. I'm barely paying that for $5. Now I'll pay for Denzel Washington because every time I go watch Denzel Washington, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I don't know what I'm about to get with that. So you want me to go pay my money? First of all, Martin Scorsese, why don't you pay for me to go see these things? Okay, you do that because have we not talked about this? If theaters, because I noticed this is not something in his conversation. He wants to talk about the theaters need to support and the filmmakers, and we got to fight. Why don't you help fight and help us get lower ticket prices? Why don't you do that? Because there's already a study that's come out that said that if ticket prices are lower, people will go back to the theaters. Isn't that what you want? You want us to stop watching these comic book movies and to go support all these directors, but you're not saying two words about the high ticket prices and how it's just ridiculous. So who are you fighting for? I thought we was the consumers. I thought we was the ones that you wanted to come see the stuff, but you don't want to help us. You want to get more money in the pockets of all these filmmakers. You want the studios to help support them. But what we got to foot the bill? We got to foot the bill for movies that we have no idea if they're even worth our time or money? Sir, take a seat. There's some more. He went on to say, I do think that the manufactured content isn't really cinema. And it's almost like AI making a film. And that doesn't mean that you don't have incredible directors and special effects people doing beautiful artwork. But what it does mean, what does it mean? What do these films, what will it give you? Aside from a kind of consummation of something, and then eliminating it from your mind, your whole body, you know? So what is it giving you? One thing that I've told y'all when it comes to films and filmmaking, and I hope that y'all really take this, you know, and always embody this. A movie is a form of art, and art is meant to communicate something to you. And through that communication, it is the movie's job to manipulate or be provocative or just to make you feel things. A comedy should make you laugh. A horror should make you scared. A drama should grab you. It should be emotionally gripping, right? An action film should, keep your eyeballs entertained. So my man Marty is sitting here saying that some of these things feel like AI is making the film, that it's manufactured content. Let me just say here, because I'm going to give him a little credit. He's not terribly wrong, right? We've seen a lot of movies, whether they're action flicks, some of these, comic book movies, they felt stale. Now, some people like to use the incorrect term and say comic book movie fatigue, but it's really just, y'all just formulaic. The same way romantic comedies are formulaic. The same way many horror movies are formulaic and they get boring. Nobody gets tired of them. They just get boring when we see the same formula. So he's right that some of these things can feel generic. Here's where I have an issue with him, though. You sat here and said that, it's the consummation of something and then eliminating it from your mind and your whole body. Okay. Yeah. I did that with Shazam 2. I watched Shazam 2. I consumed it. And I eliminated that from my body immediately. I couldn't tell you two things that happened in Shazam 2 that I care about. Did the same thing with Venom 2. Did the same thing with Morbius. Oh, yeah. Consumed them. In and out. But, sir, as a black man, as a film critic, as a movie lover, as a comic book fan, you mean to sit here and tell me that me watching Black Panther didn't do nothing for me? Excuse your face. Okay? Because it was life-changing for me. I know it was life-changing for the kids when I did a watch party and they finally got to see themselves on the big screen when these little boys and girls actually were like, oh my gosh, I could actually be a superhero. Oh my gosh, I could be the smartest woman in the world. What are you talking about? Yes, some of these movies, even if they're franchises, even if they're comic book based, they can still be something meaningful to us. Maybe it's not for you. I don't expect you to watch Black Panther. I'm sorry that Marvel doesn't have an Italian mobster comic book that they can make into a movie. But I was moved by that. Hell, didn't y'all just get done watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? There was people out there crying over a raccoon. There were people that actually was like, yo, animal cruelty is a problem because of a space raccoon. But you saying that it doesn't move us? Sir, have you not seen Avengers Endgame? when Cap picked up the hammer? Did you not see the whole crowd move? Everybody was out their seat like, oh my God. What are you talking about? This is why I don't like the idea of one person coming from a limited perspective, no matter what they've accomplished, trying to define and gatekeep what is cinema. Sir, you and no one person can do that. That's not your place. You are reserved to having your opinion. Maybe comic book stuff is not for you. That's fine. Maybe all the action stuff is not. That's okay. But don't sit here and talk about what we supposed to consume and what we not supposed to consume, because you don't know what those things are going to do for other people. You mean to tell me when somebody sat here and watched Dune, or when somebody sat here and watched Star Wars, that they're not allowed to sit here and later on become some of the best directors in the field? Because I guarantee you have directors that have watched those movies and they were like, I want to become a director now because I saw Star Wars back then. I'm more than positive some kid watched Avengers, I don't know, Infinity War, Endgame, and was like, man, I want to be like the Russo brothers. And maybe Scorsese like forgets this, but like when it comes to these movies, these big franchises, they pay for the smaller movies too. These big movies that he's like trying to rail against or whatever that are not cinema, they pay for what you say is cinema. That's the business side of things. So you got to take the good with the bad. And like I said, these big movies are not dominating theaters. They are box office wise, but we're not going to the theater seeing like a Star Wars movie every day or every week. It's not like a Star Wars movie now and a Marvel movie and a DC movie. That's not what's happening. You probably get like 3 or 4 of those in a year, if that. And we only got an influx of them just because a lot of them got pushed over because of the pandemic. So yeah, that ridiculous. Martin Scorsese says that indie film labels pigeonholes movies, and he doesn't like that title. He don't like that. He says, I think there are films for everyone. I would love to see a support from theaters, particularly, which would make it possible for people to want to come to a theater to see a film that isn't necessarily a blockbuster that needs a giant screen. Once again, you gonna help with the lowering of the ticket prices? Like, help me. Help me. But here's the other thing. Why are you acting like the industry has not changed? Nope. Let me get this. One more. Let me get this, and then I'll go into that. He says here, I'm glad that it's on a giant screen, but otherwise the theaters will only become for films that are action films. That's all I'm concerned about. He goes on to say, not everyone, back in my day, not everybody liked musicals. Not everybody liked Westerns. Not everybody liked gangster films or noirs. But at the time, we just went to the movies. And that's what was playing. And that is the crux of why he don't get it. Back in like the, 1900s or whatever, you had, what was it? Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind, when you take care of inflation and all that, was probably the highest grossing movie of all time. Better than Avengers Infinity War, better than any Star Wars movie, better than any Avatar movie. Gone with the Wind, it was that movie. Most tickets sold, all of that. Why? Because they ain't had no other movies. There was nothing else to watch. So what happened? People was like, well, we ain't got no TV. I don't feel like listening to the radio. Let's go to the movies. I got my quarter. I'm balling with my quarter. Let's all go to the movies. Let's all go to the movies. Let's all go to the movies. You're not going to help me with that?
It was a good movie.
But when you got one movie playing and you ain't got no choice of options, you're going to go to the movies multiple times. So yes, if that's the only thing going and you want to take good old Sally out on a date, you're going to go to the show. And if that was the peak of entertainment at the time that you particularly liked, and you didn't have a lot of other options, if a musical was playing, well, I guess that's what we're going to watch. If a noir film was playing, well, I guess that's what we're going to watch. We don't have those issues today. Now, by the way, back then, inflation and the cost were a lot different than inflation and what we can afford today. Our wages have not been matching inflation for decades compared to back then. So movies were more affordable for people back then. But even with that said, we have more options now. We have things that we can stream. I'm sorry. If a musical comes out or if a romantic comedy or something, I don't have to go pay $20, $30 in the theaters to go see that. I'll wait for it to stream at home. So sorry, but everything does not need to be in the theaters because times have changed. We've gotten to the point where once again, the industry has changed. Streaming is an option. Some movies are just better suited to watch at home versus trying to make it an event, and the money just don't match. It just does not match, okay, at all. I'm not about to sit here and say, hey, me and my friends, hey, let's all go watch this, I don't know, scary movie and pay $80 when we could just watch it at my house for the Netflix that I'm subscribed to. Not, why would we do that? You know? So anyway, I respect Martin Scorsese for the work that he's attributed to filmmaking. I respect the fact that he is entitled to his own opinion about what he particularly likes. But I vehemently disagree with the idea that regardless of what he's contributed, he's the say all end all of what cinema is or what movies should be or how the industry should work or whatever. Listen, if people change, you got to roll with the punches. Because in my opinion, one of the signs of probably the best artists, whether it's music, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's writing, I don't care, whatever it is, one of the best signs of true genius is when people can adapt. It's when people don't get stuck in just one little way of doing things. When people can I look at Usher as a musician. You would think that this dude would have faded off back in the 90s after Nice and Slow. No, this man is still going strong, selling out, getting residency because his music has adapted over time. That is what I'd like to see from anybody, from any type of art form, because that's what art is. If we change, art is going to change. You don't sit here and vilify people because we start to like something that we deem is worthy of our time and money and then be like, oh, we got to save cinema. No, you don't. You need to let cinema rock. Let cinema do its thing because you have no idea what will happen with cinema moving forward. You're right. Maybe we don't do cinema like we used to. Maybe it's the start of something new and better. But you'll never know that if we just keep trying to save cinema. If we still keep trying to go to the old way things were. And here's another thing. And, he might not live to see this, and that's no shot to him, but there's an ebb and flow with anything in society. it's very possible that we could see movies be these big blockbusters and all this stuff, right? And at some point, maybe it's 5 years from now, maybe it's 10 years from now, maybe people get tired of it. Maybe people are going to be like, you know what? I'm tired of these big things. I want to see something small and dramatic. And guess what? If we start putting our time and attention and money into it, the studios are going to be like, "Oh, y'all don't want to see Avengers 15? Oh, okay. Y'all want to see I Love Lucy or whatever? I don't know. That's what y'all want. Okay, cool. Hey, we got to put more money into this." And then the industry's going to change with that. You got to give us time to breathe. You got to give us room. You got to let things at least fail so that way something new can come about that. But this insistency of trying to save cinema ain't hurting. Things are just changing. That's all. Last time I checked, movies are still going straight to Netflix, straight to Hulu. Listen, I just saw No One Will Save You. That's a good movie. We just saw Prey on Hulu, the Predator movie. That's a good movie on streaming. It was just fine. Cinema ain't dying. It's adapting. And Scorsese should do the same. All right. Y'all let me know, what do you think about Martin Scorsese's thoughts on the state of cinema? What do you think about his comments? Whatever you think, please let me know in the comments down below. Jesus, that was not supposed to be 3 hours. We are not supposed to get there. But thank you so much for watching. This was just a segment of one of my live chats, and if you're interested in joining in on the next one, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications for more. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.